Good morning, evening, and afternoon, and welcome to WCS Winter Day number 3. We're going to be going into more StarCraft games for the European and Americas region today. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined by In Control here at the desk, bright and early. How you doing this morning?
Great. Thanks for asking.
I'm so glad. Yeah. Of course, guys, if you are not familiar with WCS Winter, it's been an event that's already been going on for the past 2 days. You should definitely check out the VODs. We had some great games yesterday as well as the day before. But if you also are not familiar with WCS Winter, you might not know the format since we haven't exactly done this format before. So let's go over it. 32 players managed to qualify for this event. You see a little glimpse of hands in this corner. No,
you're doing great.
Okay.
Keep going.
16 players are going to advance on to the next group stage. And, of course, 6 of those players are going to make it to the offline finals, where they're going to be playing live in the actual studio itself for a bunch of prize money.
How do you go from 16 to 6?
Through another group stage and a round robin, Jeff. Good question. You could also read all the little bullet point notes on the side, right?
Yeah?
Because it covers it all.
Okay.
All right. Well, of course, they are also going to be playing for a pretty awesome prize pool, as opposed to things like Challenger was $10,000. This is going to be $60,000 per region. So that's $12,000 for first place. And even the players that get knocked out later today are still going to be walking away with $675. Jeff, what would you buy with $675?
I would pay for the question I'm about to ask, which is you have 16 players, right? 4 groups of 4. Top 2 advance, is that correct?
Top 2 advance, yes.
Down to 8.
Okay.
Then there's a round robin that eliminates 2 players.
Yeah.
How?
What do you mean how? The bottom 2 scores in the round robin.
So you do a whole 8-man round robin, and the only people knocked out are the bottom 2?
Yeah.
Jeez.
And what's actually really cool, this is my favorite.
A lot of StarCraft. I like it.
Yeah, it is. And my favorite thing about that format, by the way, which is something we haven't quite talked about yet since it's going to be so much later on, is that from the round robin, we seed them not just as a single elimination bracket or something, because it's 6 players, right?
Yeah.
It's like a King of the Hill, where the person who gets first is almost seeded basically into the finals.
Oh, wow.
The person who gets second in the round robin goes to like second from the finals. And it's just individually, one by one, players
That'd
lining
be really
up.
cool.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's actually really fun, because 2 players get eliminated out of 8 kind of seemed a little savage, but seeding as far as that goes into a $12,000 first place prize, that's a pretty big deal. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Of course, guys, we have some awesome StarCraft happening specifically today because we got a lot of really good players in the European group. We got Elazer facing off versus Braddock, or Braddock. I know he gets angry with one of those pronunciations, but I always forget which. And of course, the next series is going to be Hearthstone facing off versus Starbuck. Got a little racial representation for Protoss, Terran, and Zerg all going on today in just our European group.
I would say this is the most stacked group we've had yet. All those players are very good. Like the weakest, quote unquote, is Braddock, but he's still one of the top Terrans in Europe, and he's all over the ladder. If you watch any of the pro gamers play, they hit Braddock all the time. He's very, very good. So I'm excited.
I feel like all of these players have also been around in the StarCraft 2 scene for ages, because you get some of the groups where you can say, oh, this player came up recently in maybe the last 2-3 years. No, all of these guys you can trace back to at least 2012.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, as mentioned before, our first series is going to be Elazer versus Braddock, and this might be a bit of a tough one for Braddock. Like you said, kind of the weakest link in this group, but still a strong player. Unfortunately, though, he has never really been able to beat Elazer in any series, and these are more recent games. These are games from 2018 and such. At most, he's been able to take 2 maps over the course of, I think, 12 different series or something. So if he can just take those 2 maps one more time in one series, he'll have this, right?
Yeah, that's a way of thinking about it. I think this group, it breaks down to Elazer and Hearthstone are the favorites to advance. I just think that Starbuck or Braddock getting an upset here, it would be an upset because they are the underdogs, but it wouldn't be so far away that it's impossible to imagine. That being said, Braddock versus Elazer is a tough first one for Braddock. TVZ right now seems to be like still just kind of very much so the meta of 2018. It doesn't feel like things changed that much. So it's going to be kind of exciting to see Elazer where he's at, because he had a good 2018, but not, I don't know, and it's like by Elazer standards, you know what I mean? So it was still a good year, but I'm expecting more, is I guess what I'm saying.
You get a semifinals at BlizzCon, and suddenly all the eyes are on you, so your standards are going to be raised so much higher. But you're right. We'll see if Elazer is going to be able to knock it out of the park in the beginning of 2019 and kind of set the stage for the rest of his results, or if Braddock is going to be able to. I keep getting mixed up.
Oh, it's always been a weird.
Braddock, Brad okay.
Especially here, because it's Brad.
There's no underscore on this one.
Well, it's not in his actual StarCraft 2 name either.
It's on his Twitter though.
Yes, and it was in Brood War. It's just funny. It's just
really, it's his indecisiveness that we should blame.
Yeah, or our ignorance to
that too.
How you say things in Russian, basically.
All right, starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Terran player at the ripe age of 32. He is Braddock. I believe playing for Team StarCom. Yeah.
StarCom?
StarCom.
Nice. All right. Keep going, man. You're doing so great.
Starting up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Zerg player. He is Elazer from Team Ago. I believe the first player on Team Ago from StarCraft 2. But they have like a CSGO and Hearthstone team and that kind of stuff.
I think so. They're like a mostly football organization getting into esports, which is really cool.
That's really awesome. And hopefully he'll be able to kind of set the stage for his team, maybe encourage them to pick up some more players if he has a good performance, gives them some good ROI.
That would be great. Elazer's pretty darn good. Young guy, good looking, wins at StarCraft. What's not to love? Situation-wise here, it is going to be a little bit of that song and dance. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think what would be the big cheeses that Terrans could be mixing in early game. You'd say proxy racks, which I think never truly goes away, so that would still be a thing.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not what we're seeing here, so we don't talk too much about that. But otherwise, it's generally speaking going to be that Reaper or two and Hellions, and the idea behind that is, of course, fighting back the creep, keeping the Zerg under wraps. So it's kind of funny though, because like the meta just kind of does that. I think a lot of Zergs are never. I mean, some do, but if they ever see like, oh my God, he didn't go Reapers, he didn't go Hellions. Well, here comes my 5th base. Like no, generally speaking, they kind of have their set plan for the first 6-7 minutes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you were mentioning the proxy racks maybe being one of the fears that exists, and we kind of already see Elazer respecting that a bit as he sends the Overlord over to the top right, pulls it back, and then kind of sends it back over to this position just to scout out and see if the Reaper or Hellions making their way up this ramp. He doesn't have to worry about that being sniped off for a bit. This Overlord, focus on that scouting information. Although he goes all the way to the bottom left and then starts pulling back.
Well, it's a very good point to point that out, though, Ravi, because like the natural path would be to go all the way across the map and find some cliff to hide and look at a choke over the other side. But they're actually just concerned with proxy.
Yeah, I'm also very interested by this 3rd base location from Elazer, because usually you'd think, oh, go for the high ground base and everything. I get this can be a bit more choked up, though, so maybe it's just sort of the idea that this 4th base is so much more open, you can't really get abused by Marines and that kind of stuff in a choke point.
Maybe. My idea here, and I know I'm in trouble because I'm going to ask you for help in a map name. What was that map that Zergs would take? A lot of times ZvZ, but also ZvT to then go roaches if you knock down the rocks. Yeah, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I didn't give you a good description, though, so it's fine. But anyways, the point is, I kind of see this as perhaps an indicator that this is where Elazer wants to go with this as well.
Maybe.
We saw that from Scarlet yesterday. A good, strong roach timing attack is always strong anyways, but if you have a map that gives you a forward base like this, assuming you can get it, which the meta oftentimes allows for anyways, sometimes it's a great staging point for some of that aggression.
Our Liberator follow-up over here for Braddock, so no medevac going to be coming on out, just joining forces with the 4 Hellions, and this is kind of one of the downsides. You can't really use Queens to block off a pathway over to the mineral line at the 3rd, so if he decides to saturate that nice and early, that is going to maybe be a problem. And he has a lot of ground to cover over here. The Queens are not going to be in position to block the Hellions from making their way to the natural. There is nothing over here besides a few Zerglings. The drone's going to be kind of bare.
Yeah, the Ling timing on this is just a little bit off. You can see 6 Lings are queued up, and it would only take something like 10 Lings to kind of block up that ramp and kill it, just like we just saw. But it's after 10 drones died. That's quite a few there. So all the Hellions dying is nice, I guess, for Elazer, but losing 10 drones is a bit too much. Losing 5, 6 there would have been fine. 10 is a lot.
So, Jeff, the kind of funny thing about this map, for those who don't know, is there are 2 different entrances. And I think Braddock kind of remembering that now. He does have the Hellions, so he can chase back these Lings. And using that choke point, I guess, does make it more difficult for the Lings to kind of justify that run by. Liberator is going to get picked off over here. It kills off. Focus fires down 2 drones, but not quite the damage you want to get with that.
No. Becomes a little bit more painful because he did kill 10 drones, but certainly that is not worth the cost of the Liberator at all. To your point about the choke point, I don't know that it's necessarily that he didn't know about that. It's just that you don't necessarily build 5 depots at one time.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's more of a timing thing there. And he had the Hellions anyways. But behind this, what kind of tech are we seeing coming out here? It is going to be Cloaked Banshees. It's a lot of Hellions. So losing the original 4, building 4 more, and still going up to 6 at least here, that's a lot of Hellions. And that's exactly what I thought was going to be happening. So he's queuing up some factories here. And we are going to get some mech play.
Yeah, he was one of the players back in the day when Mech was still kind of a burgeoning young lad.
Oh, wow.
He was one of the players that actually used to go for some of that mech play and kind of pioneer some of the direction for that. So it's not a huge surprise to me that he actually is in favor of still trying to make this work.
Would you say it's a medium-sized surprise?
A medium-sized surprise.
It's a medium? Okay.
A moderate surprise.
All right.
Maybe like a young teenager.
Wow. You're saying a burgeoning young mech player, and now it's a teenager? Or
They grow up so fast.
they really do. All right. Well, this Banshee showing up. Cloak not doing much here, as of course all the mineral lines do have those spore crawlers, and there's enough queens to chase this off. The other nice thing about taking this expansion that Elazer did is it's kind of that same philosophy in StarCraft, where if you can hold that base, then taking the one behind it's just that much easier. Sometimes, as the game develops, if you take those safe bases, going to the low ground and taking that base is the one that gets more challenged, because it's about the time where the opponent's tech is fleshed out and they have a bigger army and they can kind of do more things with that. So not going to overthink it too much. Elazer's just taking this slightly off-kilter base, but generally speaking, things are evening out here. Now, the army moving out for the Terran players, a lot of Hellions. If you look at the queue there, already a Thor. That's kind of interesting.
I guess if you think about it, there was the scout into the main base, but he didn't get that far with the initial Banshee harassment, so he may not know if there's a Spire or something that's going to be plopping on down immediately thereafter. So maybe he's a little bit concerned about those mutas.
Yeah. I think especially when you're going mech, that's something you kind of always have to have on your mind.
Yeah.
But it is just the one Thor, so I think you might be right, Rubby. I don't think it's... I was kind of wondering if it was going to be like the one Thor followed by, you know, mass Thors, but it certainly is not. Now it's tanks coming out. One of the other things here that I think is, I wouldn't call it a concern, but I'm not a fan of it. I really like mech that has double armory and like really focuses on huge upgrades, because I think that is one of the ways you can take advantage on a Zerg. How many times do you see a Zerg with double Evo? It's not very common, right? So mech showing up with 2-2 or 3-3, I find to be very powerful. When you only do the one armory, less so.
Okay, split up with the Hellions. It goes into the third base, not finding a whole lot. The fourth base, though, the Hellions finding a good bit more damage. 9 workers already going down. The Roaches are finally going to be able to catch these Hellions, put an end to that. But at the same time, there's also a couple of Hellions that ran to the natural, so a 3-prong attack there. Getting some decent damage, and the Hellions are more expendable. He's trying to build up that siege chain count.
Yeah.
I am a little bit worried about the creep spread, not kind of getting pushed back as much. And as I say that, he does start knocking some of it back.
I always find the Hellion run-by thing very interesting, because it, on the onset, when you look at it, it looks like you're just trying to kill drones, and it's just not that successful in that route. He kills 10 drones there, but if you look, Elazer has 89, so it's just not it's not that big of a deal. But what it does do is it keeps tabs on tech, and then also it oftentimes kind of jumbles up the Zerg. It's kind of silly to say this at this level, but it does actually happen. 89 drones is quite a bit. If you don't harass, then the Zerg can oftentimes very much so equalize it like the exact right number of 80 or 85. Or they have perfectly 3 drones on each gas, that kind of stuff. But when you make them run, when you make them lose some guys, some of that stuff gets mixed up.
Oh, absolutely. And messing with your opponent is a critical part of StarCraft in general, right? If everyone already just had perfect mechanics, then what would Alpha Star even be that scary?
Would be needed. Yeah, exactly.
Well, 5 more drones go down to the Banshees, and he gets out of there alive with those, so that is nice. Barracks kind of scouting forward. I also do always wonder when I see these kind of mech plays, when do you go for your 4th base? Because that can sometimes be the dicey base to try and secure safely.
Right.
Zerg player, you can already see Elazer getting nearly maxed out with 15 Hydras on the way. It was beautiful.
This is the 4th base timing here, as you were talking about. I don't know. I don't think there's a perfect answer. I kind of like mech when they take it a little bit faster, but of course that's a bigger risk, right? Because if they're doing a 3-base timing attack and you're going for a fast 4th base, the game just gets decided kind of right there, and oftentimes against the mech player. But as it is, look at this. Like, good luck cracking that. That being said, though, it is going to be those Vipers like you were talking about, and Roach Hydra, which is the kind of the composition to face mech.
Mm-hmm.
Got to keep our eye on that production tab, though, because it's got to be something else after this. I don't know. I don't see Zergs ending the game with this tech very often. It's like kind of how they survive it for a while.
Ooh, Thor getting some damage done to the Vipers. Does pick off one of them, but all these swords, all these siege tanks getting pulled in, and as scary of a position as this was, with a really, really big concave, Elazer can spread out those Hydras, get into a really nice spot, pull even more of these siege tanks, minimize the splash damage, and break through the space.
I don't think it's a breakthrough, but it is definitely the beginning of that. The SCVs getting pulled was a little bit interesting. I didn't see the Planetary getting killed there, but as it is, these Hydras are getting huge value. It's a maxed out Zerg. He immediately remaxes. Braddock, the mech player, is having a tough time. So you know what, Ruby? I was unnecessarily challenging you saying it's a break. This is a break. You're right. You're absolutely right. Like, the Hydras are streaming across. It's a medium-sized map with so many SCVs dead and so much production kind of choked off. Braddock is at sub 100 supply, and I'm having a tough time seeing him get higher.
Yeah, trying to clean up the attacks from 3 different sides. He's got his Planetary Fortress being repaired. The supply depot wall has finally been broken down, though that one siege tank will take care of that. But at this point, losing not just the workers, but also your entire army, which as a mech player you can't really replace very easily. This is looking like it might be curtains for game number 1.
Yep. He's floating off that third like you were talking about. The 4th base is under siege. He's got more tanks coming out, so maybe he, kind of holds on here. But as our friend Todd would tell you just have to look at the supply, man. It's, again, a very close to maxed out Elazer. He's got the map behind this. Keep in mind, creep is also going completely unmitigated this entire time, which is a big deal. So even if somehow Braddock stabilizes, quote-unquote, he has so much work ahead of him to be effective out on the map that it's hard to even kind of visualize that, right? It doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, I mean, the creep is pretty much in vision range almost of the Planetary Fortress at the front. And while he doesn't really want to engage versus that directly, he's killing off the 3rd base.
Another tank dies. Yep.
Yeah. There it is. GG. Elazer taking the first game in this best of 3.
And it's always fun to see mech, but that is the thing right there, right? So the Hellions run by, they kill 10 drones, which is a lot, but with that mech style, there's not really a follow-up. So if you just kill 10 drones, and Elazer, you can say he got greedy, because for the longest time, his army was like 9 or 10 roaches and some lings. The other part of that, too, is that he just knows. Like, mech does not do a very good job of continuing on the pressure. If you just send globs of Hellions out like he did, you're going to kill a few drones, but there's no real threat there, right? You're not killing important units. You're just killing drones that they can rebuild immediately. So I'm not saying that mech can't work. It's just that it's very volatile, it feels like. The Adducts were just too good there, and then he had 5 Vipers that had like full energy, and they were able to both abduct and Blinding Cloud. That's too much.
Yeah, being able to pull in maybe 8, 9 siege tanks and also get the Blinding Clouds down, and also having a massive Hydra concave, just because King's Cove, your 4th base, is so wide and open. I wonder if that maybe would have worked a little bit better, and maybe we'll see Braddock try and do that same sort of style on the next map. Maybe on a map where the 4th base is a little bit more enclosed, a little bit easier to kind of take advantage of that splash damage.
Yeah, and the other thing too, and this is StarCraft in a nutshell as well, but like, it's just a few small decisions. Maybe if you would have had 6 or 7 Vikings, which I know is kind of a weird recommendation, but if you're going to zone out those Vipers or kill 1 or 2 of them before they get all of their powers off, that could be something. Maybe you take a later 4th.
How do you feel about, I'm not sure if this is necessarily a great idea, but you get the 1 Thor, and we saw him kind of in the anti-air mode where it was doing the splash damage, which is usually for Mutalisks and stuff, but if you go into high-impact payload mode, you do have that 11 range. It was recently buffed. Do you think that maybe is an opportunity to try and snipe off Vipers or something?
It's tough, because I think in that scenario he gets off 1 shot, and I don't believe they 1-shot Vipers, so it would get 1 shot off, then be abducted, and I think its AI gets mixed up too when it's in the air. So it's
that's true.
Very small decisions there. It's very tough. But again, Elazer is one of the absolute best in all of Europe, just as a player, never mind Zerg, and the Zerg there are very, very good. So Braddock tried something a little bit off kilter. I thought he did okay. Great drone harass, but because of the map and some of the things we were talking about, a little tough.
Okay, looks like the next map has been decided. We're moving on to Year 0 for game number 2. Elazer sitting up 1-0 in our first best of 3 of the day, and already off to a good start so far in 2019. Let's see if we can close it out nice and clean with that 2-0.
Yeah, that'd be a good spot for him. Braddock is the guy he's supposed to beat. After this would be Harstem, and to a lesser degree even StarBuck. Well, a much lesser degree, I guess that's ZvT, which is one of his best matchups.
Yeah. Actually, you know, as I look at this map I actually feel a little bit better about trying to secure that 4th base or something.
Yeah.
But here, we'll go ahead and introduce the players. We're going to be starting up at the top left-hand corner of Year 0. On top of that, red Terran player, currently sitting down 0-1. It is Braddock. And his opponent spawning up at the top right-hand corner of the map, it's the blue Zerg player from Team Ago. He is Elazer. And I believe Ago is like a Polish specifically team. Specifically a Polish team.
Yeah. I think it's a Polish football club, if I'm not mistaken.
Ah, yeah. I know you mentioned that before.
Yep. And I always wonder, too, it's kind of funny, because maybe it's not Ago. Maybe that's the 3 letters.
Ago?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Either way, he's doing well. It's pretty cool. He left a great organization in Clash and went off and joined another great organization that is still investing in StarCraft 2, which is always wonderful. Now, you were talking a little bit about this map having a better 4th base. I have to agree with you. Terrans seem to have a little bit of a better time here, or a tougher time in the sense that pushing is also kind of difficult on this map because it is a long map from base to base. But if And, you know, Braddock didn't even really try to attack last game. It was more of a, like, harass, defend, and then unfortunately die. But if you want to just defend, this is the pretty good map to do it. There's a lot of going up into high grounds, a lot of choke-ish points. Might be better for Braddock. We'll have to see if that's the playstyle he wants to try and go for.
Well, Lazer's still respecting the potential of proxy barracks. And usually I feel like when a player goes so out of the way to scout for proxies, it's also maybe a little bit of a sign of confidence, saying,
oh, yeah,
as long as you don't proxy me and I don't get kind of caught off guard by that, I feel really strong against you if we go to late game. I'm not really too worried.
You're exactly right. And of course, the fun challenge to watch StarCraft players go through is how much safety do you want to do? Because it's when we say safe, we aren't necessarily incurring that means there's no risk. It just means that there's less risk. And StarCraft players have to always manage that, right? Like against a better player, if you just play completely straight up, completely normal, and don't cut any corners, well, then they're faster APM, they're better mechanics. It should beat you in most scenarios, so you shouldn't play that way. But at the same time, and I think this is something that non-Koreans in the years past struggle with more, but still always struggle with, you can't take, like, I mean, you can, but you shouldn't probably take all the risks, right? Like just everything's a risk, everything's the greedy option, and hope to get all those to go through. Yeah.
A really good example that I always like to compare StarCraft to sometimes is in fighting games, you actually have a lot of people trying to do reads and stuff all the time. It's a lot about mind gaming and reading your opponent. In StarCraft, I think you can do that sometimes on the microcosm, but on the large scale situation, usually when you're doing a read, if you're wrong, you can just lose the game. That doesn't really happen in fighting games. Usually you'll maybe take a little bit of damage or something. It's a much greater impact if you misread and you take a risk and then you just get punished for it by losing an entire game in a best of 3.
Yeah, there's a bit of a column A, column B there. I know what you're getting at, but I think the fun thing about these series is that you are constantly making reads. It's just kind of, to your point, it's how you implement that, right? Like, if you're like, well, I think this guy likes tank pushes, so therefore I'm going to make an entire strategy about stopping tank pushes, that seems a bit severe, right? Whereas in StarCraft, we have so many decisions to make and so many mechanical things happening all the time that it's more likely that you'll be like, for this window of time, I need to be aware of signs that could indicate they're going to do a tank push, and I'm going to mitigate, or I'm going to put that into my play. And that's kind of what's made StarCraft the best game that's ever been made, is that it's not, you don't go into it with the battle plan and then nothing ever changes that, and that's just exactly what you do. The game is an ever-flowing, constant back and forth of information and instinct and reaction and causing reactions. It's just, and that's why it's just such a beautiful game.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Taking a look, by the way, we do have just the 2 barracks coming down over here for Braddock, and adding on that starport, getting up Stim, so he is transitioning away from that mech play that he tried to go for in game number 1, but he also got up a fast 3rd as well.
Yep, it's going to be Bio Stim a dead giveaway, as you said, which is interesting. I always like Terran players that can go back and forth, and they're not like I only mech or I only bio. I think it's way more dangerous to be dynamic. It does kind of beg the question, and I'd love, I wish we later in this WCS will get more options to have interviews with the pro gamers and stuff like that and hear their insight, because they're of course a wealth of knowledge. But like, why that map? Is that map considered a very good mech map? I'm not necessarily saying it's not, but it didn't seem to go according to plan at all. Just off that one attack. And the attack's not like a sneaky one, by the way, right? It's not like 25 Swarmo showed up and he just wasn't ready for that. It was Roach, Hydra, and Viper at exactly a good time from a mechanical Zerg, but still, that is the army that you kind of make against mech.
Now, this is an interesting timing for a push-out, because he's not just sitting back with his Marines and waiting for the initial medevacs, although the medevacs are making their way across the map. But he's joining forces of the Marines with the Hellions and the Reaper from earlier on. Didn't really focus on any creep spread cleanup until finally now he's going to start revealing everything. And I believe a Zergling did see the army moving across the map, so Elazer is just in pure Roach and Queen mode right now.
This will get put down pretty hard. As it is just those soft guys there. The combat shield has not finished, so it's a low health amount of bio there. I don't think he has the armory yet, so there's not even really the option to switch into Hellbats.
Nope, no armory.
It's going to load up and go away, but as you said earlier, I mean, this is getting spotted everywhere. There's Overlords, there's creep. So he's going to kind of relegate himself to picking off a couple of Overlords, maybe fighting back some creep, and that's all fine and good. It's not necessarily bad. That is sometimes part of the game here, but I do like Elazer's position a lot. Like 7 Queens met the initial push there, pushes it back immediately, and there it is. I'm loving to see this more often as well.
Yeah, Nice Worm recently got that health buff, making it a little bit more difficult to clean up, but hey, hold that thought. You have the Hellions running on in, getting some drone damage, but another way you could look at this is that he gets 9 drones in exchange for a lot of the standing army that he had.
Yeah. But against a Roach timing, those Hellions aren't going to do much, so you would trade them out for about 10 drones there. That's just fine. The problem is, very often when this is going on, this is what we can see behind this. Terrans are taking a third, right? They take a third behind their aggression. They fight back creep. The idea is map control. Well, the Nidus Worm kind of cancels that out a little bit. Like, this army coming across the map would probably always dislodge that third, and that's always going to be tough. But add Queens to it, and now it's a game-ending potential attack, and that's because he took the third, by the way, and didn't tech up or something. So it's a very scary situation here.
Well, the Marines are starting to head over to that main base, but that Nidus Worm is likely going to finish up in time. These SCVs do roughly 1 damage to the Nidus Worm right now. Siege ain't going to be able to do a lot more. The Queen's not the first things to unload, but it seems like he's still going to be able to get them out in time. Nidus Worm does not get transfused, though. He is not actually going to have enough to break there, but here there is absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised that units still came through that Nidus Worm, given that there was a good reaction there. He won the position battle. He was never going to win the fight, but whatever. I think the Elazer's in a funny spot right now where it's kind of like, you can make a few mistakes, you can make a few poor choices, you're still probably going to come out on top here, as these Roaches and Ravagers are doing a lot of damage. Now, that being said, on this, the natural, well, no, the Marines are dead, never mind.
Yeah, the Siege Tank was putting in some serious work, and it seems like he's actually getting a lot of damage done to these Roaches, but it's at what cost? 23 workers have already gone down. Another Nidus Worm is going to be popping on up. He gets close to the Siege Tank, but is still going after a lot of the Marines so far, and this Nidus Worm is going to get shut down, but another Nidus Worm still alive in the natural.
Yep, and the third's dislodged as well. So basically, Braddock is just on the main base, and he's lost so many SCVs. He's down to 65 supply here, and more are still dying. He's fighting as best he can, but Roaches trade really nicely against Marines. The tank, of course, being the big power lifter here, but how much can it lift? How much can it do?
Yep, another Nidus Worm is going to be popping on up, because Nidus Worm's a lot cheaper than they used to be. And it really is just the Siege Tanks that's keeping them alive, but the Roaches start to cleave their way through the Marine count. And once those Marines are gone, Siege Tanks are left bare to fend for themselves, and they are both going to get sniped off, or at least one of them does.
He had a couple corrosive biles hit, so yeah, these Roaches should finish the job. And
got him.
He's dead.
Yep.
2 of the tanks dead. I mean, one of the ways he could have came. Yeah, there's not even any on the way, like you said. I mean, if he could have gotten to like 3 or 4, held the high ground, okay, I could see him pushing out from there. Even then, though, it's a full 3-base robust Zerg behind that. It's like, all right.
How many Nidus Worms have been killed? 4 Nidus Worms killed. He has a Nidus Worm building and a Nidus Worm already out. So that's 6 Nidus Worms so far.
Why not?
That's a lot.
Love it.
And there goes another one. The Roaches only have to deal with Marines at this point, and with that +1 weapons, they are going to start cleaving through more and more of these guys. Well done. Elazer already sitting up 1-0. This is going to allow him to take probably a 2-0 over here and move on to that winner's match. There it is. GG.
Braddock will tap out. It's just the first match, though. Braddock's got more to say in this group, but nicely done by Elazer. And again, this is a little bit of the round of 32 for us. There's going to be, we call it trimming of the fat a little bit, because Elazer, again, is a guy who, as Ravi said kind of at the beginning of the show, he's been to the semifinals of BlizzCon. Losing to him is, there's no shame there. He's one of the absolute best. He's won a lot of money playing StarCraft 2. And Braddock, a very good European Terran, it would be shocking if he beat Elazer here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these initial matches, like you were saying, they're there to give an opportunity to some of these up-and-coming players, saying, okay, look, if you can make this happen, this is really big news. This is a massive upset. People will remember that you were able to make that kind of upset happen. But if you don't, then there's still, you go to that lower bracket match, you're going to face off versus someone else that's probably a closer seed to you.
Yeah.
And that's where you really start to see a lot of these players maybe start to bring out a bit more of their best.
I mean, there's RNG in StarCraft, guys. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but if you get put in a group with a Serral or a Special or a Elazer, there's a short list of players who are, because there's very good players, and then there's players that are the next echelon, and Elazer's up there. He's one of those guys. So it was a bit of a bop, but we're going to have that in this round of WCS.
Well, the next match, I think, is going to be maybe a little bit less of a bop. We'll have to wait and see. It is going to be a Protoss versus Zerg with Hearthstone versus Starbuck, two players that have also been around since the beginning of StarCraft 2 for the most part. That should be a lot of fun. I know Starbuck doesn't have the greatest record versus Hearthstone, but they haven't played since 2014, so we'll see how things roll out in 2019 in just a little bit.